Hey, what's up? I'm Damon, and on this channel, we usually talk about Christianity and leftist politics, and as this channel has been slowly growing, my interaction with non-Christians, with non-religious people, and even with atheists has largely been pretty positive. I quite often get comments from people saying, hey, I'm an atheist, but you're doing God's work. It's like kind of joking around like that, or just I guess they like the perspective from different angles. But, of course, there have been some atheists that it's a little weird with. It's kind of confusing. People who are out there who still, I don't know, are in their edgy atheist phase, as atheist friends have called it, when they see these comments and the way that they talk about religion, they cringe. You're like, oh yeah, I remember my edgy atheist phase, and I'm so glad I'm not like that anymore. Just needlessly anti-religious with no real backing for any of their points. Just as long as they have an anti-religious take, that's all they care about, even if they end up being dishonest. Now, this is terrible. And of course, like the OG atheists would of course, disapprove of this behavior. And I'm talking about stuff like saying all of Christianity is inherently colonizing and inherently white, and Jesus was a right-winger and stuff like that, where it's just clearly false. And part of it is America's general religious illiteracy. A lot of people are really uneducated when it comes to religion. It's not necessarily our fault. Even plenty of religious people are very religiously uneducated. Sometimes especially religious people, of course, obviously. But I just wanted to touch base here on this topic and just make clear, and what I'm going to say, a lot of Christians would say what I'm going to say, that when we talk about God, we of course condemn all these ways that God has been used to colonize people. And of course there are people who try some way to defend it. Like,
I'm just saying that the reason the Crusades occurred were to stop the kind of behavior that shock you every single day when you read the news from the Islamic world.
No, definitely not. But here's the thing. All throughout history and all over the world, we have oppression. And we have resistance to that oppression. And each group has developed their own theology during those periods, or even today, to justify those actions, to justify their oppressive behavior, or to justify their resistance and their struggle for freedom. Now, modern Christian theology has mixed all of those theological developments, all meshed together. But by being more and more educated on theology and religious history, you begin to be enabled to sift through these theological developments. And I, along with plenty of other Christians, choose to only affirm the theology that comes from the oppressed. And I'm a hard atheist to the theologies that have come out of the oppressors. And also, being a hard atheist to those types of theologies and ways of talking about God is very, very significant to me. I don't just use that word for this video. I use that word for my own personal life. And that's what's funny, is when I come across certain atheists that say, I'm an atheist because I don't believe blank, 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 blank. And I'm over here saying, neither do I. Of course I don't. Me and you are on the same page here. And I think there's a lot of atheists that I've interacted with that get that. There's some that don't. And that's why I'm still a Christian, because if I was only aware of the theology that has come from the oppressors, yes, I'd be right there with you, full-on atheist. But I have come across theology that has come from the oppressed, that has come from the crucified peoples of the world, as John Sobrino referred to them as. And it reignited my faith. Not to say that that's all you need to do is just read some liberation theology and then you'll stop being atheist. No, of course not. Plenty of people could read every single theological thing ever written ever and still end up an atheist. And that's okay. But for me and plenty of others out there, liberation theology has ignited within them a fire that they're craving their entire spiritual journey. A theology that comes from the Latin American peoples who have been oppressed through underdevelopment and poverty. A theology that comes from the indigenous people that we screwed over. A theology that comes from African Americans as they've struggled constantly from slavery all the way until now, still struggling for freedom. A theology that comes from the Dalits in India, the untouchables, the last final backwards caste in India, and theology that comes from the Palestinians. Theology that comes from the Assyrians in Syria right now. Theology that comes from refugees. Theology that comes from the marginalized. The least of these. Through the least of these is where God is revealed, according to Jesus. The New Testament tells us, Jesus and Paul, that God can only be encountered through weakness and vulnerability. The parts of your identity that is vulnerable in this world is where God is revealed. Vulnerability is a gift. Your vulnerabilities are the places where society abuses you and the places where God speaks through you. That is the type of Christianity I'm talking about. Also, when we talk about the certain people groups I mentioned, of course, those who didn't initially have Christianity, who received Christianity through colonization, we see even then it does not stay a colonizing spirituality because it is used against the colonizers. I've said before, using Christianity as a way to colonize people historically has been proven to be a terrible idea, because once the people actually start to engage with the Christian tradition and prayers and scriptures, they quickly see, oh, this entire Bible that you're trying to use to keep us in line has a clear anti-imperialist narrative. And this Jesus guy was clearly on our side, not yours. And this God empowers our resistance. The cross, as James Cone has said, was a sign that God chooses the side of the victims. James Cone also refers to God as the one whom people have met in their historical struggle for freedom. And now some may be watching this and thinking, you're just trying to make it your own thing, just trying to add your own modern leftist politics and slap it onto the Bible. And the question becomes, who's doing the co-opting here? Is it the colonizers co-opting an initially justice-oriented faith, or is it the justice-oriented people trying to co-opt a colonizer faith? I mean, honestly, it just takes some Googling to figure that out. Like, legit, the people who try to make it seem like it was initially a colonizer faith, clearly uneducated, unfortunately. Like I said, it's not their fault. That's just part of the world today. So I see the radical core and the origin of this faith, and I follow the stream that has continued ever since the beginning of anti-imperialism, anti-fascism, anti-colonization. And if you just do a little bit more reading and studying, even just Googling, even just looking at some Wikipedia pages, you can start to find that stream and realize, oh yes, of course, that stream has always existed. That stream that is the baseline of love throughout the history of Christianity, in the midst of the clanging cymbal of Christianity that has been the other stream that, of course, we all should be resisting against, Christians and atheists together, of course. So, thank you, everyone who watched this. Let me know in the comments if you're feeling some of what I'm saying, if you're a Christian who also agrees with what I'm saying, if you're an atheist who's also like, yes, cool, I'm not one of those edgy atheists. And if you're one of those edgy atheists, get some counseling maybe. Like, I know how much trauma religious people cause, but do not let that define the entirety of religion. So, I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I've experienced traumatic experiences from religion as well. Absolutely. So, let's just keep going. Let's just keep growing. So, thank you for watching. We make videos like this all the time, constantly talking about liberation theology on here, and we're growing this community slowly of plenty of other people talking about liberation theology. So join the community, subscribe. Also, if you want to hear me talk about this stuff in a more freeform, interactive way, I'm on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/whoisdamon, and we talk every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. also about this stuff. You can also join my Patreon community at patreon.com/Damon Garcia and support what I'm doing over here. I would greatly appreciate it. Shout out to the patrons already over there: Karen in Colorado, Ranger Jenny, Refined Your Scene, James Finlay, New Transcendentalist, Kristen Mouse, Mike Totman, Peter John Blake, Rob Hutton, Jack, Theory Bleeb, Jacob McCarthy, Mike Lodato, Frank Morales, Vema Pasa, They Were Monsters, and Julianne King. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. I miss the old atheist, straight from the go atheist, chop up the soul atheist, set on his goals atheist. I hate the new atheist, the bad mood atheist, the always rude atheist, spaz in the news atheist. I miss the sweet atheist, chop up the beats atheist. I gotta say, at that time I thought I'd be atheist. Did they invent these atheists? I wasn't any atheist, and now I look around and there's so many atheists. I used to... Alright, that's enough. Alright, see you later. Bye.